All right, good evening. It is 5:31 on May 22nd, 2025. I'd like to call our meeting to order. Give me just a second to share my screen with the agenda. All right. For those that are joining remotely, can I get like a thumbs up? All right, you can hear us and you can see everything. All right, thank you. The first item on our agenda is approval of the agenda. There haven't been any changes since I sent it out. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Thanks, Christina. Thank you, Chuck. All right, motion's been made and seconded to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's enough to pass. Thank you very much. Let's go down to regular business. First item is our finance report. And Karen, I know you joined us. There you are.
I did. I did.
How's it going?
It's going. How are you all?
I think we're doing fine.
Good. Okay.
How are we doing financially?
We we are Mhm. Um no, I think we're doing okay. Earlier today I was talking to James about our budget because some of the things that we need to do. So let me get these open in Adobe. They're fresh out of Zero. Okay. We want. Okay, so this way. All right, now share my screen. And I will share this guy. All right, can you all see that?
Not yet. I'm gonna stop sharing. Oh, now I see you. All right.
All right. All right, so I would tell you all what I told Charlie via text, and that is that this has been a massive project getting everything transitioned over, particularly the history. So some of the history is throwing me off. I just learned today that the way Zero would prefer you do history is different than the way that an accountant would approach, at least my logic accountant brain would take the approach to introducing importing the history into Zero. And they want the actual cash balance from the bank. So that's kind of thrown me for a loop, being that, I've imported 2 years worth of history, and then we have 2025. So I think we're good though, because Zero allows you to do period reconciliations. And so I had no differences. All the transactions that are in there for 2025 are in there that need to be in there. So it's just a matter of still getting all those splinters out, like I mentioned in the last meeting, refining it. I've gone through and I've recategorized things, and I think you guys will be pleased with how this is presented. So anyways, let's get right into it. For our financial statements, you'll notice that our operating account and direct assistance accounts are negative numbers. That will be the case now because of outstanding checks and things like that. So, and the reason is because we are set up with, oh, and I didn't change it, but we are set up now for the insured cash sweep, which protects us with that FDIC risk. So our money is spread throughout a few banks to make sure that we're staying under that $250,000 threshold at each bank. Um, we have we have quite a bit of money right now due to we haven't started on the Pallet 24 project. We did pay for the one of the permits that's required for us to get started on that out back. And then we also received like 2/4 of the city contract payments all at once. So um, we also have some higher AR that might be a duplicate. Like I said, this has been a little bit difficult for me, trying to make sure that this is as accurate as possible. So accounts receivable is not, I haven't been able to check that today, but it does look off and I am looking into it. Um, but
What would be an example of receivables for us?
so a good one would be Douglas County. When I sent an invoice out to them, so it would be recorded on the first of the month following the month that I'd be billing them for. And so then that would be recorded as receivable, and that would be for 26,000, 24,000. Um, so that this could be two invoices and then some credit card receipts that they the transaction was initiated, but they haven't made its way to our account yet. And I didn't finish my thought with the direct assistance and operating account. So we have set the PEG balance for operating and direct assistance accounts at 0. There's no need for us to have a minimum balance in there. This is something that we talked with Bank Midwest about. So in order for us to take advantage of the insured cash sweep program, which allows us to earn interest on all of the money, we just decided to go ahead and set the peg at 0. And the interest rate right now is about 2.7%. So, spoiler alert, we got for 2 days in April, we received $220 in interest. So I would rather us earn interest and have 0 balances as the end of the day, which the bank, depending on what's going on in our account, will either sweep cash out of that insured cash sweep account or sweep it in to make sure that the balance at the end of the day is 0. And then we're fully taking advantage of all of our money and earning interest on that as another vehicle for earning revenue. Um, does anybody have any questions about that? That's a very new thing. I don't remember if we talked about that at the last meeting, but like this is brand new.
Yeah, we talked about it just briefly as part of the audit, that this
Okay.
was in response to the audit findings.
We can talk to
Or
whether
the-
money market or some other account, but it sounds like all they're saying have internally with Bank Midwest works the same way as a money market, so or like a savings, so we're good with whatever way would help earn the most interest would be any avenue.
Did you ask a question? Because I can't really hear you. I'm sorry.
No, there was no question. It's a confirmation that I think it's a good thing that we're diversifying in this way.
Yes, I agree. Especially with the way that the economy is turning. I was able to get all of our fixed assets in. We've also been working on a few projects around the shelter. I know this month we finished painting in some of the areas in the shelter. And so those will be added to our fixed assets in the building section. So you'll be pleased to know, Chuck, that there is depreciation and it is being calculated.
Yay.
Yes. Yay. Yay. Um, okay, so accounts payable, this is reasonable. We've had a few things prop up at the end of the month. It's been crazy busy for me. Union dues are part of that too for, I think that check hadn't cleared or we hadn't written it yet, but that's there. And our loan's up to date. But we're in the black here. So this is our balance sheet for now. Did you all have any questions?
I think the format looks pretty straightforward. I do wonder with was it Kindred? I believe I can't recall exactly, but I was thinking that their format also included the prior year,
Prior year.
so we could see kind of how things have changed. Is that something that you're still working on? Okay.
Yes. Okay, let me add that to my notes. Okay.
Any other questions about the balance sheet?
Well, I know last time we talked about the formatting of these and, of course, let me know if you guys want to see something different. I did not format the statements of revenues and expenditures with the prior year in mind, because I believe John said he was more interested in budget to actuals. So I do have that, but I could put in prior year as well if that's something that you guys are interested in.
So I believe the line of credit agreement had some stipulations about the formatting of the financial
Oh,
statement.
okay. So I'll need to look at that then.
Yeah,
Look at that more closely.
I think it included both the
Last year, prior year.
I think it was prior year and then budget actuals. So you kind of had both variances.
I like seeing that personally. I like the comparison. Just to
Yeah.
get a feel for where we are, what we compared to what we did. And
Yeah, I think
where we are.
we had hesitated prior to simply because we were comparing 2024 to 2023. There was no reason even to look at that.
Yeah.
But now I think we're in a little more comfortable cycle.
I have one question, and I don't know if it's present on this statement. I'm able to pull up some statements that date back from March, and February, and then also in January. There is similarly placed in this format. Is there a line item for luncheon on this statement for this month of April or as of April?
No, so that was a request made by you all that gets renamed.
Okay.
So it's now called staff appreciation.
Okay, yes, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I will move on from this. Okay, so all right, so here's our statements of revenues and expenditures through April. I do have it isolated to April. Do you want to look at April isolated or do you want to look at year to date?
I'd do year to date.
Okay, so all right, so not a surprise. We are forever down. We have been talking about how we are going to increase our donations to align with the budgetary goals that we had set for ourselves. And I think today, because we meet every Thursday, our strategic development team, I think today walked away feeling a lot more optimistic. I know the last couple of weeks I've been a little stressed out, trying to figure out how we are going to come up with the difference that the city is reducing from our budget, from the contract. And yeah, we are down. We did receive some money from Facebook, and so we're a third of the way through that, so that's good. We still are trying to plan some events, thinking about what's gonna land well. We're trying to find a location for one of the events that we'd like to have. Because the ideal location we want, they do not want to do what we want to do. So we were going to be looking at different locations. I think prior to announcing it, I don't know if we've talked about it before in the meeting, but something to look forward to. We've received about a seventh of what we budgeted for foundations through the end of April. But we are right on track with our service contracts in terms of that being billed out. Particularly with the city, though, we have received all 1.75 million to date, and then I'll be sending them another invoice, I guess, at the end of June to get that third quarter going. CDBG, we are more. This I need to figure out because 17,000 of that is 2024 funds. And I need to delineate that too in here. So it's like every time I look at this, I'm like, oh yeah, I need to add this line. Oh yeah, I need to add this line. So it's like moving into a new house.
Is it, is this CDBG COVID dollars or is it which CDBG
It's really
funding?
CSBG.
Which
So
one?
CSBG.
Okay. I'm
So
just curious if the expectation is that it's even available next year.
we've
Is it?
applied. Um, we had
Okay.
applied with the city back in January. I have not heard back on whether they know if there's even a budget for that. If they're, I've not heard back.
Okay.
But
The ESG funding, is that,
We're approved for 2025. We already got that. We just submitted
I'm thinking about 2026.
I don't know, we just submitted the application.
Okay.
Was that for 26 we submitted or are they behind at 25?
it's a fiscal year 2026, so starting in 2025 through 2026.
Okay.
So yeah, we use the CSBG funds for our case management. I think 1.5 people salaries are paid by that, and then ESG, of course, our rapid rehousing and some shelter expenses, typically either utilities or groceries or some other needs that we have. I do need to submit expenses for the emergency shelter and food program. I think I mentioned this in a meeting ago, that we received about $10,000 in grant funds for food or other supplies. So I need to just submit that. I need to submit a lot of reimbursement expenses right now. Because again, life is crazy. So I
I have a question about the report format.
okay. Okay.
So the column on the far right is the budget column.
Yes.
I'm assuming that's the budget amount for the first 4 months. Is that?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. So our total revenue we budgeted for the first 4 months was just over 2 million.
Yep.
And
That is what you are seeing. Yes.
that seems high to me. Like I think our total budget, like if this is a third of the year, then I just want to multiply that by 3, and I know we're not expecting $6 million of revenue. So what am I
Yeah, I
missing?
don't think that could be what we budgeted, because we have an extra,
Or the payments all just coming
700
early?
and something $1,000 in there was is that in there from the amended funds that we got? Is that in there, or did that go for last year? That's for
No.
last. Okay,
None of the amended funds were accounted for in this budget. Not,
Hmm.
yeah, no. So I don't think we were
So-
like, yeah, throw $700,000 in there.
Well, so I think main thing, Charlie, that I'm seeing with that is that we're booking, in the first 4 months, we're booking as revenue half of what the city's contract is. So forgive me if I'm wrong on that, but I think there were 3.5 million on
Yep.
the city contract, so we're claiming
In the first 4 months.
4 months,
Yeah.
we're claiming half of that, so.
That makes sense.
But it does mean you're right, at some point that number is gonna reverse pretty dramatically.
Yeah, well, I guess what I'm thinking about is the format. It would help me to see both kind of our total year budget
that's true.
and then what that time period is. So if we're looking at a single month, I want to see the single month budget, but still have that annual budget on the far right. And if we're looking at a 4 month time frame or a 6 month, like see that period budget, but also the annual, just kind of helps to situate it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess
I have an example of that I could share with you, Karen. The health department does something similar.
Okay,
where we
yeah.
Have a column that shows the annual budget. We have a column that shows year to date. And I think we have a column that shows the month.
But that amount won't change next month. It'll be the same next month and the
Right.
month after that. It won't change until July for the city.
Yeah.
That's when we get the next payment. So that amount will stay consistent for the next couple of months through this quarter, basically. So
Yeah.
you were right there, because we're actually talking about 6 months. But we're just the 4th month, it just covered 4 months, but it's actually that.
So I guess that makes me wonder, is the budget, do you have it defined by month or is it defined by quarter? Like,
It's defined by month.
But certain months should expect a higher revenue because when the payments arrive.
I guess my concern in this picture is looking at some of the other income projections that we had on donations and events and fundraiser and foundations. At the deficit for the first 4 months, that's extending out to about 180,000 less than we were budgeting for the year. So, at what point, I don't remember, I'd have to pull up what we were looking at on non-cash budgeted items like depreciation. But it would almost seem like $180,000 shortfall in revenue that we would be looking at right now could actually have an impact on figuring out how much we've cut expenses in the course of this year, I guess.
And when we say budgeted for the month, I think that's what we're actually saying is we took the budget for the year and divided it by 12.
Yeah.
and then each month. So that's not exactly what we expect to come in. It's just by time alone. If you divided it by 12, that's what we would say be a month. So we didn't say we'll get this money
Yeah.
in these months. We're saying out of 12 months, if we were getting a consistent
Sure.
amount of money for each month, it would be this amount, but that's not the way it works.
No,
Well,
But the comparison
Yeah.
to the same time frame of last year will give us a better indication, are we on track to be close to what we did last year?
Right.
We can't see that with the way this is, the way that was.
Yeah, we actually look at each line item
Mhm.
at the health department, and we will look at whether it's whether it's distributed evenly each month, or if it's
Right.
fluctuates, and then apply the same seasonality to the next budget year,
Okay.
assuming that actuals kind of reflect the pattern. So if you know you're going to receive certain payments or bills in certain months, like our insurance payments, our insurance bills are due, certain months of the year.
Right.
We know we'll have those big bills to pay.
Right.
So we budget it to be done during those months. The problem then starts to happen when you get the bill at a different time of the year. So,
Throws you off.
yeah, then it just has to be explained in your financial report.
That's what.
So is it helpful to look at it this way now?
Oh, you're just editing this on the fly, huh?
Yeah.
This is.
So you got the month of April, January through April, what one slice of 12 is in the monthly budget, January through April, and then the overall year budget.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
Okay.
Are you able to move the columns? Because
Yeah.
I'd probably slide the monthly budget next to the actuals, and then put the year-to-date actuals next to the year-to-date budget. Does that make sense?
Yep. I gotcha.
Because then I can just go scan it right down the line.
Right there.
Yep. Thanks, Karen.
You're welcome. I'm happy
It
to
is
do.
it is nice that you have the software to be able to do this yourself.
Yes. Yes. And you have to try to explain it to someone else. I'm a
Yeah.
visual person, so when you were like, yeah, could you just do that? Absolutely, I can. Absolutely. Okay, so we were here. And we were here. So I have here's another one that kind of gives you with the variances too that I had planned on including. So it gives you a better idea of where we're at. So, here's a number that we're short of where we had planned on being, at least, based on the information. What I'm hoping that with this year's activity, we'll be able to better forecast out for and budget for next year based on the seasonality of the donations and things like that. So rather than just saying, oh yeah, we expected to raise $33,000 at this point, maybe we were only in reality should expect closer to 20,000 because of seasonality. So that's what I'm hoping happens. I think we can do that. Okay, so let's go back to this guy. All right, so then you had asked for groupings. I'm happy to report that things are grouped. I am not happy to report that I need to go back now because I've made some subcategories. So we used to have just general supplies, right? I have now added subcategories that are specific to like cleaning and sanitation, food service and storage. Kitchen supplies was already one. And then things that don't quite fall in any of those categories is an other. Um, so uh, those will be grouped together, which is nice because then we still get the idea of what the total budget is, and that will be compared. And then next year, I'll be able to budget out for each of the subcategories. Groceries, same thing. So it looks like we are over budget.
Will we
This
be
month.
getting copies of this information for us to look at?
I can get you copies. I'm telling you right now, they're just draft copies. Do you still want the draft copies?
Um,
Draft because some of the like
I still have some.
numbers are,
It's really
Yeah.
difficult for me to look through this when it's kind of being jumped around on a screen. It doesn't give me the ability to review it. So, I mean, quite
Okay.
honestly, this is an exercise that I'm not sure why we're spending our time on it.
Oh, okay. Well, we're almost done.
We're saying that these numbers don't really mean anything right now because we don't know where they're coming from. I'm not sure why I would be trying to follow them along in a maybe scenario.
yeah, I can appreciate that. I guess I'm interpreting it as there's maybe 95% certainty that the numbers are accurate, but needs to still confirm a lot of things.
Yes.
So it's more about just the fine tuning and Karen's confidence that she's got everything in place.
Yeah.
But I don't know, speak for yourself, Karen, if you got a different level of certainty that you might give us as a way to calibrate what to expect next, because I know you've been working at this for a while now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been rough, but like I said, this has been really great software, especially having used QuickBooks before too, and then some other desktop applications. And I just really I like the cost most of all. This costs us $60 a month. Applos, we were only using it essentially for the PEX cards. That was $109 a month. And then in order to really utilize it the way that we needed to utilize it, it was going to cost even more. If we were to go to QuickBooks, it was going to be more because they nickel and dime you. And then I don't necessarily have the freedom to do what I need to do in the accounts because they want you to talk to an advisor. So I like this option because it's cheap. It works well. You saw how quickly I was able to customize this report on the fly. Um, but I do,
But in terms
I
of your confidence in the transaction,
yeah, and in terms of the
like-
transactions, like on this particular statement, these are good numbers.
okay. So how far are we from being able to like review official prepared financial statements?
Now that the migration is over,
Okay.
this is my goal is to be done with this and have it where it needs to be, and me being 100% confident in it. I'm close, but not 100%.
Yeah, I'm appreciative of this process, because this is a community conversation. We're not the only ones in this room, who are paying attention to this budget, who are wanting to know line items and also just the operational of the Lawrence Community Shelter. I think this is a great way in its draft form for accountability. And I appreciate us continuing it like kind of line by line, talk specifically about what it is we want to see as board members in a discussion in a large group. So I'm appreciative, and I would like to dive into the utilities and the fluctuation in the seasonal utility costs too. And talk about like how we can budget for that and what that looks like.
Yeah.
This is a good conversation for us to have.
Yeah, for sure. When as I was getting into it, I was like, okay, yeah, this would be really useful for us to see where we're spending our money. And I mean, if the community wants to help us out in any of these areas too, they know specifically where it's costing us the most. And if they had connections, or if, they had extra supplies or whatever, we'd be happy to have them, The other thing is I'm thinking a lot about some of the repairs and maintenance that we've had over the year, between last year and this year. And, I was particularly interested in seeing, okay, well, how much are we spending on plumbing? How much are we spending on, electrical guy coming out or our groundskeeping? This just kind of gives it more of a, this is where it's going. Whereas before it was just repairs and maintenance, like it's super general. What was repaired, or, what kind of service were we receiving? In the interest of taking us to a more transparent place with our financial statements, I think we're getting there,
Is it possible with this software to uh, publish any sort of interactive reporting?
I believe so. I'll have to look into it though.
Okay.
I know, and I might talk with our web developer. I don't know if there's a way where someone could pull a report on their own. It'd be limited. I wouldn't want to make it like super accessible or anything like that. But like if you wanted to look at somewhere in the past, being that I brought in 2 years, if you wanted to see 2023 in zeros format, even though we have our financial statements,
Mhm.
our year-end financial statements anyway on our website, if they wanted to see it by month. And right now it wouldn't be particularly helpful because we don't have it categorized like it is now. So this is kind of like one of those, we're moving forward, right?
Mhm. Well, this definitely feels like progress.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't
Um,
know, Chuck, to respond to your sentiment, I guess I hear you. I understand it's frustrating to not feel like this is like, we can't say, yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
But I think we're close to that, and I think
Yeah.
we just got to keep seeing progress. And I think to your point, Christina, like it isn't fully done yet, but it doesn't mean we can't talk about it, look at it, let the public see it. Just acknowledging that may not it may not have all the blemishes out of it yet.
yeah. It needs polishing for sure, but as far as like, this profit and loss statement, these are solid numbers. These are meaningful numbers, that we can all discuss and say, okay, well, what's going on here, or we should be looking out for it. I think,
Well, there's that workers' compensation thing.
oh
We
yeah,
talked about this. Looks like we're pretty significantly over budget for the month. Did we finally get the audit completed?
we did.
That's what I was wondering. Okay.
We did.
So we're good on that now.
Yeah, we're paid up. It came out a couple days ago. The catch up, the catch up amount for 2024 was 17,000.
Okay, but we knew we were gonna owe that. I think people that understand workers' compensation audits understand this isn't like, this is unavoidable. You do have to
Yeah.
pay, whether you pay upfront or you pay later. Sometimes you get a credit if you've overpaid, so.
Yeah, for sure. And I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, we're over budget. You already said that. Definitely lost my train of thought. It's good though that you guys can see now it's payrolls all grouped together, what the total amount is. That also is helpful as we're making hiring decisions internally, thinking about some of the benefits that are being offered and where we're at there. So not just salary and wage wise, but obviously we have to pay taxes. If this individual's qualified for health insurance and workers' compensation, obviously, but just to get it in total rather than pieced out and then trying to add it back together.
So I don't know if it's too much to put on the page, but the variances would be kind of nice. I'm doing a lot of mental math right now.
Okay. Yeah.
It's like,
Here is where I was like, I'll include this because it might make the page too messy. But then you'd be able to see, and it's got these really handy dandy, you're
Mhm.
down, you're over, you're good, you're under budget, arrows here. So yeah, under budget, but
All
overall,
right, so when we get into the month of June, do you feel like we're gonna be able to take a look at 5 months of completed, ready to go financial statements?
that's the goal. Get you
Okay.
complete non-draft financial statements with bank reconciliations. And then you all had requested payroll,
Mhm.
a high level payroll summary for each month. Which I could have been providing, but because it's been crazy. And like you said, we won't have Microsoft migration ahead, and I won't be involved in that anymore. So
Yeah, James, they need to come up with a better bandwidth management plan here. There's a lot going on.
yeah.
That's just internal stuff.
Yeah,
It's not
you know,
impacting service, but it's like
no, it is a lot of
occupies a lot of your
internal-
time.
I knew that, but I didn't know it would happen this soon.
Mhm.
Because once we changed all the processes and we put things in place, it's fine tuning and learning what we have to adjust in order to keep it where we want it, and that's what's going on now. So,
Well, is there anything else you wanted to talk about, Karen, tonight?
Nope. I just wanted to point out that we received some in kind. We got a pretty nice in kind contribution from KB Painting, who painted the women's area, and I think the men's area too, or
Mhm.
I know for sure the women's. But then we got our interest revenue on there for those 2 days of interest, and then our loan interest for the mortgage. But that's all I had. I think I'm hoping next month I can have the I can't even think of the financial statement. The third one.
Balance sheet, profit and loss. What's the other one, Chuck?
Statements of cash flow.
Oh, cash flow, yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me through this. This has been a ginormous transition.
Well, thanks for your effort. We appreciate it.
thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
All right, let's go back to the agenda here. We have, next up is Executive Director's Report.
Okay. So this week I wanted to talk about some of the classes that we're having and give a little bit of a readout of what we're seeing with some of the classes. I know I've been asked by Christina, I sent you an email about some of the staff trainings that we've been doing. I don't know if you didn't get it?
If it came to the new
That's
Gmail,
good.
I have.
No,
The new Microsoft account.
So alphabet is to do for me.
Okay,
Okay.
well, I'll read them to you.
I'll be looking for.
So for 2025, and when you said that, I was like, we're doing it, I just wanted to get that information to you, and I
Yeah.
emailed it to you, I think that day or later on that day.
I appreciate it, thank you.
So in 2025, well, let me explain this. Kim has been working with KU to do interns, so she's been getting master's level interns, and so we had a great one this time. His name was Miguel Rivera Jr. And so he came on board. Him and Kim worked to put together some of the staff trainings that we know are beneficial. And so in 2025, they have done conflict resolution, nonviolent communication, empathy versus sympathy, cultural responsiveness, compassion, fatigue, and self-care, understanding mental health issues and behaviors, ACE scores and the effect of trauma and health and mental health, brain studies and on the use of methamphetamines, bloodborne pathogens, safety in the workplace, de-escalation, compassion fatigue, and burnout and vulnerability. Some of those were done by Mercedes as HR, and some were done by Kim. De-escalation, we've offered that through some with us and do some with the city. We've had some different trainings with the city that we had access for staff. So I say that to say Miguel Rivera was submitted to be as for an award, a Margot Award, and
Okay.
he won the Margot Award for his work that he did with the Lawrence Community Shelter. He won Exceptional Performance in MSW Foundation Practicum. Miguel Rivera Jr., Lawrence Community Shelter. So I continually, every time I saw him, I tried to advocate for him coming on staff.
Oh, that's
Mm.
excellent.
He was wonderful. He still might.
An intern too.
he was an
That working
intern,
there.
yeah, and,
Have that training. That's
he's doing great. So I just wanted you to hear about some of the staff trainings. I know that was a concern, it's always a concern of mine, and we're doing that to educate the staff, and just get them more in tune to getting this work done. We're actually meeting with our ACCET HR professional twice a week. She comes out. She lives in Lawrence, so that's good. So she comes out and we do talking about some of the things that she can help us identify. And one of the things I know we're talking about is how we do better at explaining ethical boundaries and exploring the power dynamic in the situations that we're working in. So our staff are really aware of the perceived power that they have and how to be cognizant of that, and to just be cognizant of that so they don't unknowingly use that power over somebody. And so we're working on doing that. We see that as one of the biggest things we have to do continuously.
And then I love that update too. I'm just curious, but if that's staff trainings, are you also just examining how that can work into clients?
That's my next one. I got a list of
Okay, cool.
client stuff too.
Alright.
No, those are in services that we do with Kim does the case management and Miguel was helping her with that.
Okay.
Miguel primarily focused on the DSAs. When we had DSA meetings, the first half hour of that would be the training. And they would have questions and questionnaires and periods where they would get responses from the staff.
Yeah.
And so it worked out pretty good. It was pretty good to not just come and talk about what they do every day, but provide them with some training and some ability to ask some questions. So that was pretty good.
Can you, I don't understand what the Margot Award is. Is that something,
Margot-
is that something famous I should know about?
Let me read it to you. So the KU Practicum Education is pleased to announce the winners of the 24-25 Margot Award and to offer our sincere congratulations to all graduates. The Margot Awards are named for Margaret Schultz Gordon, professor who served with the distinction as professor and director of practicum education at KUSSW from, I guess that's the KU School of Social Work from
Social welfare, I think.
social welfare.
Yeah.
1970 to 1983. She was an extraordinary human being and a master educator. In honor of Margot and in the celebration of social work excellence, thank you all for your amazing work in the practicum, joining us and celebrating.
Awesome.
That's fine.
Thanks for reading that.
Yep. I knew you would ask this.
You know,
because
we never know who's gonna watch our
you're
YouTube
right, and
videos.
it's great
And,
information.
you know, it's great for them to hear that.
So Kim has already been asked to take on more students, so that's been a real good teaching tool for our guests. So with the guest classes, we have our date programming community partners. We partner with the Willow. They teach healthy relationships. Independence Inc. They do open support groups, but actually I'll talk a little bit more about that. We have DECA, peer support, Catholic Charities, which they do Imago, soft skills, workforce center, career navigation, pending until they are adequately staffed. So we have something set up with the workforce center to come out and work with us. They have a bus that is it's like a computer lab on the bus, so people can actively do resumes, apply for jobs and things like that. I think it has about maybe 6 to 8 computer stations on the bus, and they're gonna come out. So they're waiting on staffing to actually come out and join Wellness Wednesdays or come and visit us on a schedule that we have in place. So they've committed to it. They're just waiting to get it fully staffed to be able to do that. So we have some day programs that some of our staff teach. So we've engaged with our case managers and some of our DSAs to do some of the groups that needed to be done, and they're doing life skills. They're doing some de-escalation skills, stress management, mental health education, and open support groups, self-care and hygiene budgeting, and budgeting, and some of the additional partnerships and clinics that we have. We have Wellness Wednesdays. We have a driver's license clinic. They come to us and they talk to people about how to restore their license or how to acquire their license back. That's done through Kansas Legal Services. We just partnered with Mr. Will Brown. He is a barber and he used to be a resident at the shelter. He's went on and got his barber license. And so he's coming back and he's doing haircuts. On Fridays, he has a 4-hour window where we pay him to cut hair. We pay him just a price of $20 a head for whatever. And that sounds expensive, but haircuts are expensive. But not only do people get haircuts, he does hair, he does eyebrows, he does. And I said, we can't pay you for a la carte, but what price could we pay you per person? And no matter what they needed, you would be able to. He settled on $20. So he's not just doing it for the money. He wants to give back, and he is a good testament for our guests to see that somebody that lived there has gone on and is doing well, staying sober, clean sober, he's working, and he's coming back and giving back to where he is just wonderful for him to come back and talk, because it's more than just getting paid to do haircuts. He actually goes down to the Dare Center and does haircuts down there too on some days. But I think it's a good experience for the staff to see him come back, for the guests to see him come back. It's been working well. So he's gonna double up in a week. Wellness Wednesdays, he's gonna do Wellness Wednesdays, and then he's gonna do that Friday also. So he's coming regularly. So that's a good thing. And then we have the Humane Society coming. So we partner with Independence Inc., and her name is Grace. Grace came out and wanted to know what she could do and what we needed. And so she's doing more supporting for disabilities. And so she has a whole curriculum scheduled out. I mean, I could pull up the email, but it's too extensive to read. So she has all these groups planned. She comes out at the village on Wednesdays. She comes to the shelter on Friday mornings, and she is doing great. You talk to her, you just know she's happy to do what she's doing. And she said, I can do the group by myself. I don't need nobody to help me or whatever. She comes out, it's been great to see her. She's energetic. And our guests love to go to her group because she has a fun group. So the number of classes that have been provided, or the number of people that have attended classes since last month, they told me this was from the last board meeting, was 194 people have attended groups. We have the average class attendance is 11.4. The number of unique attendees, there's been 50 people that are coming to the groups. So that's great. Along with the village, we're starting to build a programming at the village. We started at the shelter. The village is a little different. We will allow people to come to the shelter. If they want to come for a group, they're able to come over to the shelter. But we're going to start to build our own programming specifically for the village. We started with Grace, Independence Inc. And then we have NA coming over there, substance abuse groups coming over there one time a week. Yeah, that's what we have on groups.
That's excellent, that update, and then it also just really kind of a testament to how the multi-sector partnership's been working to
been working.
collaborate for the like mental and the health and the community support. I love that community lens and how much that you've implemented in that. I wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah.
I think I'd ask you about,
Mhm.
what are trainings, what are some things
Yep.
going on, and you give me an exhaustive list, and I
We're-
hope that we continue building on that, because that's really great.
One of the things that we've also are working to build is a working relationship with HRT. A lot of times you'll see pink shirts at the shelter, and that's HRT coming to meet with folks night by night. We're building up to ensuring that we have ongoing groups and ongoing guests living in the shelter 24/7, more than just a 90-day program. And so we've offered people, anybody that's in night by night can sign up to come to group, and they stay in the shelter all day. They come if they attend groups. Now, if they needed to leave the shelter in order to cut down on just saying I'll come in a group and then coming back and forth, if you have appointments and things you need to do outside of the shelter, you can do that. Just let somebody know what you're doing, what your appointment is, then you can go and come back. If you need to go to the store or something, we'll do that. But we're trying to cut down on people just coming to stay in the shelter to just hang around. So if they go to group, they can hang around, they can watch TV, they have their bed, they can go back and lay in their bed, stay in their shelter. And what we've seen is a significant change in some of the behaviors with a lot of the guests that were maybe standoffish and just angry, I would say. Now they're starting to be more social. It's created social. We've been talking to different people, and we can see a definite change in the way people are interacting. So that's been good, and we're building up to get ready for the opening of Pilot 24 and the implementation of the 30-day program, where we're going to have we're going to try to have at least 100 people in the shelter at all times. So it's going to be a big task, but it's doable if we have the structure that we'll put in place. So we're slowly implementing that structure to lead to people being used to being in the shelter, staff being used to that amount of guests at the time. And the key is giving people their space, that's their space, so they don't have to just stay in a group room and sit in the couch. They can go back to bed if they want to lay down, but just show up for group. They can eat lunch and dinner, they can do all those things, and it's been working out pretty good. It's been working out better than I expected.
So how are we looking on the ballot coming forward? Sorry, what step are we in this process right now?
We're waiting on the building permit to be issued. I was told by the city to be issued before the end of the month. I'm looking at some concrete being broken up next week sometime, to start. So I'm looking for next week.
Okay.
Uh,
And then, I mean, I realize that there are so many issues with both contractors and supply and things like that. Do we feel like we've got a good sense of completion of the project timeframe?
You know, no, I don't feel like we have a good sense of that, but once we start, we will. I think one of the biggest concerns that the contractor shared with me was getting that electrical panel, which is key to everything. Other than that, all the other parts are accessible and ready and easily available. And if the panel doesn't come in, he's been told by Evergy that they have the panel he needs, and they're gonna have it. That's not gonna stop everything else. If the pallets are set in place and the lines are ran, the only thing would be to put the panel and connect the lines. So that could be done simultaneously before we get the panel. But he was assured that they have the panel and we should be on track. The next step is to get a firmer timeline from the contractor based on him coming out and laying out. They have to go and mark the ground and do all that, and people actually coming to the site. We haven't had the actual builders there because you can't start work without having the building permit. And so once that happens, we can get firmer timeline. And I will say that we should be ready to go by August 1st. I would say.
So the timeline that's been announced in the news,
In the
The-
news,
yeah, the August 15th,
yeah, that's where
is that,
we should be able to make that.
okay?
So have there been any, specific stumbling blocks so far, or just a slow delay in
There,
approvals, or?
No.
How are you seeing that?
no, there haven't been stumbling blocks. There has been, from what I've gathered, and I was new to the planning process. There are a lot of different pieces that have to, be solved before you can even submit for a building permit. And a lot of people are involved, different departments of the planning department are involved in those different pieces. And if everybody's not at the table together, it trickles in what needs to happen. And so we had an engineer, it would trickle to the engineer, he would trickle to his team what they needed to change and get back, it would trickle back in, trickle back up. This last couple of weeks, somebody told me I need to be a squeaky wheel. And I've been a squeaky wheel. And just to keep me more educated on the process and what was holding the process up.
Yeah,
So-
so you don't wanna have to get good at that, that's
No.
not what you're gonna be focusing on.
They said squeaky wheel, I would call it something else, just, I don't know what I would call it right now, but. I don't know, I think that's the planning part that's over with. I think the only thing else that could happen are unforeseen things with supplies and things like that. Anytime you're building, you know that, Jack. You never know until you get in there and see what you don't have.
Or what came in damaged.
Right, so. I think my next big thing when I get with Aaron is to finalize what he thinks the timeline is gonna be and actually get with Pallet. They have a whole onboarding schedule that needs to be filled out, so they'll know when they need to come and put together the pallets and set them in place. And then they're done. They put them together, set them in place, and we anchor them down. That's kind of one of the last steps, anchor them down. But I have to get them on schedule to do that and to deliver the bathrooms. So we've already paid for the bathrooms, they already paid for it, they're waiting for us in the warehouse. So. I don't see anything else. I think that hurdle is over for now, but.
Speaking of bathrooms, how are the, how are things at the village
Well,
with
as
maintenance?
of yesterday, all toilets were working.
Is general maintenance getting better, or is it
It's the
still,
same. It's the same.
okay?
The amount of usage that the facilities get over there causes them to be out of order
Mhm.
frequently. We had, actually, there was an appointment today with, I think it's Stoneback, the appliance company, come out and look at the washers. Our washers have been down for quite a while. That winter freeze froze all the pipes over there, caused things to ice up, not work, and then break more frequently. If you ever go over there and look at the restrooms, they're leaning. Which causes when the water flows by gravity. When they're leaning like that, the shower drains to one corner and it puddles in there. We can't keep it dry enough to keep the mold from building, so we have to dry it out.
Hmm.
And so. It's not getting better, it's pretty much the same.
Well, I know, over time, things degrade.
Yep.
And if the city isn't planning to make sure that that gets better, I'm worried about. I mean, no, it's only just started the summer, or we're still in the spring technically. But like, what is, how long can that site really survive? it's not designed to be a permanent
No,
thing, so if it's getting worse, for wear, then
you know,
seems like something needs to be
I
done.
would say this, if the restrooms are not being sabotaged, but just the normal use by that many people are causing a lot of flooding and overflows and things like that. And sometimes people put things in the toilet they shouldn't put in the toilet. And when they put it in those toilets, it causes them to be inoperable, which
Mhm.
causes other things to back up and flood.
Mhm.
And so that's been the case. So,
How
It-
about
it-
the,
Is it,
as far as Monarch goes, are
we have Monarch right now. We have 5 people in Monarch. We have 2 reentry and 3 high medical needs that are in Monarch. We just got another mold inspection. When that hard freeze happened, we had it just during that time we had those units cleaned and mold remediated. During that hard freeze, I think one of the pipes burst in one of them, in 2 of them, and they caused those to flood. So we just had the people come out and look at the mold, so we have to do some remediation in those 2 again because they flooded. And one of the ones that we started learning to turn the water off. We had an accident where a staff person was turning the water on, but she turned it on in one of the ones that had flooded. We had just dried out. We got it before the mold was in there. We dried it out and had the humidifier. I think the humidifier was still in there. She turned the water on, and it was one of the ones with the pipes were burst, and so it flooded again. So we had to have that. So we have 3 that are on the mend, but all the other are up and running.
I guess it just feels like this is becoming a pattern where we should just expect every year things to just be difficult, and I wonder how to get out in front of that. And is there any way to like
I think
make a
right,
final decision? Like, are these facilities even appropriate to like continue operation? Or should they be, maybe
right
try a different
now,
path?
I would say yes. They're okay to continue because we know what we need to do in order to look out for the pipes being burst and things like that. I know more now today than I did 6 months ago about how to keep that going. And we thought we had it contained until somebody turned the water on to the
Mhm.
wrong unit. They didn't
Mhm.
know which, they thought where they were opening up was for another unit, but it was for the ones behind, not the ones in front.
Well,
So-
I guess it's also in my head is if we're learning any lessons that are gonna be applied to the installation of the new pallet shelters. And if that turns out to be a more successful, way to kind of expand service or expand space, then is it worth like doing more of that? And maybe, figuring out how do we get to the capacity we need or the community needs. And maybe we're spending a lot of time and money on trying to just fix things that are breaking. And that doesn't seem wise to me, so.
The new pallets are totally different. I think the game changer is gonna be the different facilities
Mhm.
that are plumbed to
Mhm.
go to the sewer line and not in the tank. And so I think we should be good there.
Well,
I think we should be good.
it's a lot to take care of.
It is.
Appreciate
It is.
everything you're doing.
But we have a maintenance person, that knows. I have him checking those units, so we started off by making sure that in the wintertime, we have the heat on, the heat has to stay on, so that's part of the routine checks. In the wintertime is to go in and see that it's on. A unit that's not occupied, we turn the water off. So they can't purge. We have to make sure we drain them when we turn them off, because the extra fire suppression services that they put in there are these huge pipes that run down the wall of the main unit and they stay full of water. Those are what burst. It's not the plumbing of the unit, it's the additional that the engineers didn't design, but they came in after they put up before they would be approved for use. The fire chief said that they had to have additional fire suppression in them. And they put these big copper pipes in there, and those are what freezes and burst. So, but I've learned how to stop that now. I think I did. I can say I think we did. I think that's all I have for today.
All right. Anyone have any other questions for James? All right, let's go down to executive committee report. I'll share the couple things we've been discussing, the fundraising issues, like the need to build our capacity for fundraising has been a topic of discussion for a few of our meetings. And then we've had more discussion just recently about the city and the county's effort to like in the implementation of the A Place for Everyone plan, bringing on board a family shelter capacity for the community and the role that LCS might be able to provide in helping to execute that part of the plan. If you go back to I think it was October of 23, when we first had the discussion with the city and the county about how they maybe saw the role of LCS. They mentioned at the time family shelter, but it hasn't been there hasn't been a whole lot of discussion about it since then, honestly. So it sounds like the city and the county are making steady progress on the plan, and there's a greater possibility that there will be a facility available. The challenge would be able to support the funding for the operations of that facility. And there's no easy answers. Is there anything either of you want to add to that report or? Yeah. Okay. Any questions from any of the other board members? Okay, let's move on to the advisory committee report. Is there any report from the advisory committee?
And so I really need to, take a little bit more proactive approach to getting with the communications person that you work with, or the person who's working on your, has been working with you in the backup for your telecommunications and the launch of all the things online, because I know there's a social media push and a launch that you have. I receive newsletters and it's really great engagement. I think with that engagement could be an opportunity to relaunch this survey, to look over the questions to see if they're still relevant. To also offer opportunity for others here who might want to take a look at those questions and even have some more impact on what it looks like to support meetings with the existing board members and what that looks like for the people who are still in that space and interested in wanting to invest their time further. So yeah, we'll have to talk maybe summertime, be a good time to kind of launch out and see what we can get for folks who are wanting to volunteer their time, with the opportunity of there being a stipend, because we talked about that for lived experience. We still are talking with the county about what that would look like to provide incentivization for participation in boards for community members. So there's a lot to be said, not a lot to report on the advisory, but maybe some back work that could be a meeting that we have that could talk about some action steps.
I've talked, when we were talking about this a couple of board meetings ago, I met with Megan. Megan was the one helping me do this. And we talked about using our platform now to maybe reinvigorate that process, and we're ready to do that. Whenever you want to meet, we can meet and sit down and put together the plans to put the feelers out there to see who's interested. We can re-engage with the three, I think we had three people that were still willing to be on the advisory board, re-engage with them to see if they're still ready, and then proceed forward with gaining more members. We could do that.
That sounds good. I know that there were some interest and then people
Mhm.
fall off from the meetings, so, those are supposed to be meetings that are at the discretion and the time best for the group,
Right.
so, yeah, let's talk about what that looks like to relaunch.
I think one area that would be really helpful to have some support from an advisory committee would be future appointments to our board. And currently our appointment cycle hits in October. So Rebecca is her term that she serves right now ends in October, or I can't recall if it's exactly October or but I think it is October. So if Rebecca, you can speak up if you want, Rebecca. I believe if you're, I can't recall exactly without looking at our bylaws if we have a limit on the number of terms, but that term was initially a 2-year term for the board members who transitioned from the old board. She was the 2-year and I'm the 3-year. So she would have her term comes to an end and we have to be either reappointed or we'd have to find a replacement. And both Rebecca and my position are considered independent directors. So we're appointed by the whole board from whoever you decide is appropriate. And then the city and the county have their appointments. And I believe Shannon has her term. It also ends in October. So this year, I think we'll have 2 board members whose terms will come up, or
My term is also.
is it? So maybe it's you, Chuck. And then Shannon has the 3. There was a staggering of the initial terms, so maybe it was Elizabeth was 1, Shannon year 2, and then
So-
Shannon is 3. Okay.
Charlie, I think mine's a 2-year as well.
Okay. So we might end up with 3. So then I think we gotta just pay attention to that, and if the advisory committee had recommendations either for the independent directors or perhaps even the city and the county, I don't know, that's it's completely their prerogative, but if there was some I assume you could always write a letter and say, hey, here's some people we think might be worth considering for your appointments. But sometimes I think that process can be underway pretty early. So,
That's too in a consideration to make about the, what is the real delegacy of power or control, or what can the influence can the advisory board have? And I think we want that to be as clear as possible, and I don't know if we've gotten to the point where we've written out some limits and bylaws or some considerations to take to the advisory committee, so they know this is not a position to hold a position, but it's also a position with some authority. So lots to talk about.
yeah.
Yeah, and agendas are put together, and I think, yes, the committee runs the discussions, but items could be placed upon for consideration. The agenda, I think James has something else to talk about what that can look like as a structure for this committee.
I did want to comment, I pulled it up. Any director may be reappointed as applicable for an unlimited number of consecutive terms.
Okay. Thanks, Karen.
So yeah, the bylaw said that the initial director is appointed by the city of Lawrence will be staggered so that one will serve a 1-year term, one will serve a 2-year term, and one will serve a 3-year term.
Right.
So do we know who was a 1-year term?
Now, Elizabeth Keever
Okay.
was the one, and then Ciccone was replaced Elizabeth. And so then Ciccone has a 3-year term. So then it's either you or Shannon that have the 2 and the 3. So if you think yours is the 2,
I think so, but
Yeah.
I'll verify that.
and I don't think the city has any, I think as long as they're using our bylaws, then the unlimited number of terms is possible, but I also feel like the city might have its own policy about that. And so they might not, they might just, by their policy, not appoint someone more than twice to the same committee. But again, that's their prerogative. But in my opinion, that would be one of the key ways an advisory committee could be really helpful, is to help us to identify, like, what do they feel like we're missing at the table, and how do we recruit people with new perspectives and complement what's already here. Anything else in our advisory committee?
To consider, thank you. Hopefully the next meeting will have some updates to share.
I'll be a squeaky wheel.
All right, operations committee. Anything to report? I know we had some discussion a while ago about whether this committee needs to be still alive, but if it's, you guys.
Again, too, we had talked last about this being an ad hoc committee, and I think that we'd settled on that, but just not a confirmation. As to if that was going to be what we do. And then we have another agenda item, I think, that kind of correlates and maybe can streamline into that discussion about what that operations committee could serve in lieu of, or what could be a committee that we design ourselves to commit to. But the operations committee, as I had said, there's not been much talk, but both Chuck and I are a part of the executive committee, so those are some operational communications that are still happening.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Well, we're a pretty small board. There's only 7 of us, so. All right, then let's move down to other business. So I wanted to have discussion. We started this discussion. I mean, there's really been an ongoing discussion. We had I think, pretty good discussion at the last board meeting, and the follow-up to that was the survey that staff had kind of assembled a draft survey and asked some feedback, and after hearing our discussion, I provided some feedback to kind of reflect some of our comments in that last board meeting, and then push the survey out. And I thought we could go over it and then just have more dialogue about how we see our role in supporting the efforts to essentially build more private, funding for the shelter. There were, I think, 9 questions altogether. The first question was, how confident are you in understanding and supporting the mission of the shelter? And glad to report, so there's 6 of us that responded to the survey. There's only 7 of us on the board, so it looks like we're pretty solid on our understanding and support for the mission of the LCS. Someone maybe had marked the somewhat confident, but I felt like overall, seems like this isn't an area that made me feel any concern. Anyone else have any reactions to this first question or thoughts on? All right, let's go down to the next question. Second question was, what do you see as your primary role in the shelter's fundraising efforts? Here we were kind of all over with, not all over in a bad way, but we saw our role in a diverse way. Making the personal donations was acknowledged as a role. Connecting the shelter with, I think these might be, there we go. With potential donors, that was seen as an option. Assisting in planning or hosting fundraising events and advocating for the shelter within the community. So I don't know that this provides any clear focus. It seems like we're all ready to help in different ways. I don't know that. Does anybody else have any insight that they would gather from this response or these responses?
This is Rebecca. I just wanted to comment, like I would have chosen more than one if I could. So I thought that it might have been helpful to ask like what things are you willing to do?
Yeah, I had kind of a similar thought, Rebecca. When I had given back the feedback, I did put in this as my draft back included this as a multi-select because I felt like maybe there was, kind of to your point. But then when it was finalized, it was just left as a radio button. So I thought maybe staff was trying to discipline us to pick because the primary role was kind of the question, maybe not pick all of the above. So I don't know. That could be interpreted differently, I guess. Let's go down to the next question then. How comfortable are you with asking others for donations to support the shelter? And I mean, yeah, we're a small sample, but it seemed like generally we're comfortable. One person indicated there might be somewhat uncomfortable, and so I think that would tell me that we probably need to have more time in just building our awareness of what the shelter does. How do we tell stories? How do we get people to feel like they can speak with some sense of, I think one of the challenges is, can you handle questions? It's easy to give a elevator speech if you can memorize it, but then when someone asks a question, you're left a little flat-footed, and so sometimes that feeling comfortable is really knowing that you can handle whatever sort of engagement you might discover yourself in when you have these discussions, right? Because you never know how someone's going to respond when they discover that you're a board member at the shelter and what they might, throw at you. They might come at you with, wow, that's important work, or they might come at you with something entirely different. I agree. This is a good training opportunity. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know,
Yeah.
this is also one that I think volunteering at the shelter can help a lot with starting to feel more comfortable with just being able to talk about the shelter.
Could you repeat what what was said there? It was if there was some dialogue, but we heard you, but not the
Oh,
question or the comment. I apologize.
maybe Christina's remarks.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
She's a little further from the microphone. I'm right next to it. So.
Okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, so what I said, I'm a teacher at heart, so I'm always thinking of the educational opportunities. I just thought that this, as board members, it's a good time to talk about what training for board members could be like, and so agency services overview could be a training that we could all kind of be a part of, so that we could talk what the mission and vision of the organization is at rote language, because we all speak it. And then also, maybe talk about what that looks like for promotion and going into other organizations and talking about what it is we do. In this space.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I agree.
Yes, I
Okay,
agree. Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Chaconi, thanks for saying that. I just realized the input on my sound settings was apparently my laptop and not the echo, the meeting owl. Yeah, the meeting owl. So can you hear me better now? Can you hear Christina or Chuck?
Yes. Well, somebody say, I heard her clear when I just asked her to repeat it. So
Christina, can you say something?
Yes, hello.
Can everybody hear better?
yes, I heard her.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I need to check those settings before we start our meetings. Okay. Next question, number 4, what type of fundraising, training, or support you previewed the question, didn't you? Would help you feel more effective in this role? And looks like here, a lot of support for the idea of just understanding our financial needs and goals, getting access to tools like talking points, marketing materials, and strategies for donor engagement. No one said they needed help practicing making donation asks. So, any thoughts on our responses there? One thing that I really appreciate are the stories that get shared on social media, because it helps me to think about how I can just, amplify that if I can, just pay attention to the stories that are already being told, and someone else might be watching us on Facebook or something, but if they're not, I can say, I can recount something, so I think maybe it's feeding more of that directly to the board if we're not all tuned in all the time to all the public messaging. Maybe there's just a way to kind of repurpose what you already do to make sure the board's like hearing it all. Just make it slightly easier, is I guess what I'm throwing out there. Or maybe there is a need to build new content that helps us to feel like we can navigate, we can share stories. That's kind of my reaction to what I'm reading here. Any other thoughts on what would help us to be more effective in this sort of role? Okay, let's go down to question 5. This was the first open-ended question. I don't really want to read all this out to everybody, but what do you believe are the biggest challenges for our fundraising efforts? I don't know, maybe we just have some discussion about this. I will confess mine's the bullet on the, we don't have much infrastructure. It's still early. I think we're building this capacity, so I guess I see our challenge mostly as this is relatively new, and it's not that we can't do it, just that there hasn't been we didn't all walk in with a legacy of this being done. And so that's tough when you're starting something where you don't, you don't inherit it. A lot of us might go in institutions where they've been doing this thing for years, and now we just gotta roll with it and be another worker bee and rinse and repeat, right? So I don't know what your other experiences are in organizations like that, but it is handy when you can walk in and just say, yeah, put me to work. And then you learn the tricks of the trade, and then a few years you're running the show maybe. And it's just a nice, smooth operation. I don't think LCS, doesn't have it. So we're having to say, how do we create that, which is a formidable challenge. But organizations do it, so we can too.
Well, as I mentioned at our meeting on Monday, I did follow up our conversation with someone involved in the Lawrence Public Library Foundation and just got a little bit of background on how things had emerged for them, and basically they've been operating for quite a while now. They said that the Friends of the Public Library started in 1972. And then the foundation was established in 1996. So they've got a lot of heritage associated with that. And as a result of that, they do have some donors that have been, contributing every year. They're trying to work toward the idea of some of what we talked about of a monthly pledge type of program, and they mentioned that, for instance, at KPR, at this point, I think they were saying that over half of KPR's donations are coming in a monthly pledge format. Now, at the same time, on the other end of it, they said that they in terms of large donors, which was what we were talking about on Monday, in that same category, they're saying that they get about 10 to 15 new large donors per year. And so that's a pretty tight little number. And they then also said, well, and those are the new ones we get. We actually probably lose some due to people dying. But then said that their average donation is about $150. So, that might be some metric for us to work with as well, in terms of if we're looking at donations in an average $150 realm, what do we need to achieve, So, I thought that was interesting in the sense that they are also an organization. The public library is an organization that receives majority of their funding from tax revenue, but it's from property tax primarily, not from sales tax. So, it's an entity that is funded already by the citizens of Lawrence and Douglas County, and then additionally with their foundation seeking donations beyond that for operations.
Thanks for doing that research.
I appreciate that research too. And I also recognize that like there are institutions and there are organizations that are necessary that are so much more easy to support.
Yeah.
Than there are other organizations to support publicly. And so some of the barriers, it looks like maybe, at least my organization, for example, it's hard to support sexual violence education. It's hard to support things that like people don't want to talk about. Houselessness has taken, even the word now we use is more inclusive and talking about an instance that isn't so othering as it was 5 or 6 years ago. Even the conversation of where the placement of Lawrence Community Shelter is a conversation a few years back, but it is so much easier to sell babies and puppies and all those cute little furry things that people want to support. And the library is one of the places people absolutely understand it is a foundation for how we educate, how we utilize public space, and how we learn, laugh. Barrier to what we would do in comparison to a Love Lawrenceburg library is vast because of the biases, the stigmas, and the attachment to the thoughts of what it is to support houseless people and why should we, or those are the things and the perspectives that come into play and thoughts about how that can be a continuation of support. I don't think people really think why should we support a library, or what is the library gonna do for me, or those are some perspectives that are different when we take an inventory of houses population and the people and the clients we're in. So yeah, I don't know.
I agree with your comments. I'm always amazed to see locations around Kansas where, for instance, school bond issues are defeated, where people say, I don't want to pay for schools, and so I'm always amazed at how what I think are cornerstones of the community don't necessarily find that same resonance with a large number of people. I wish we had a greater community sense.
But the community did speak up about some protections of houseless individuals by giving tax dollars and making sure that we have support for that in the way that we grocery shop. So the community does care about that. So I don't know if that even, I like the conversation more than I like the kind of how we can maybe move on to the action plan. Because these are perceptions and stigma. I think these are real big barriers that don't have.
Yeah.
We can't live without education. I'm sorry.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I agree with all of what you all are saying, especially with the infrastructure. It's not we can do it. I believe we can do it. and I'm willing to, like I said at the last board meeting, jump in and help and do the work. But I think it's very important that the community, what some of the things are saying here, that they're fully aware of what the shelter's impact is and how we're helping. Like you said, I do think people care, but we do have that other side of you know, the misunderstandings about our homelessness crisis or um the support. So I think if we work together to push out I don't know if marketing, I mean, that, when I was doing my research to answer these questions, those were the type of words that came up, but kind of letting um, people know that we are saving lives, we are helping, we are changing lives. Like James stated with the barber, that, hey, there are success stories here. You did keep a lot of people alive during this ice age winter that we just had. That the shelter is a place that's needed and is important to keep funded. And I think if we just keep those things at the forefront of our um, community and kind of get what I think we're going to talk about in our key themes, like if we can get a team or what we have or get a start on how we can fundraise and get this going, I think we can do it.
Thanks, Connie.
I guess one other piece that I would add from my conversation with the library foundation, they commented that generally half of the gifts, the donations that they receive in the course of a year are in the last quarter of the year. And they said they think that's pretty typical for most nonprofit organizations as far as when those donations come in.
I'd be curious the seasonality of our individual donations to see if that's the same.
We can look that up.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the next question. Question 6 was, do you feel adequately informed about the shelter's fundraising goals and outcomes? And there was a little bit of everything. Looks like maybe we could spend some more time on trying to get clear on what those goals are. But I know looking at our financial reports gives us some insight, but I still kind of look at it myself and wonder, am I fully understanding? So that might be something we can fix relatively quickly. Just setting some goals for what we want to get done. Any other thoughts or reactions to this question? All right. Trying to get out of here at 7:30.
We're gonna make it.
Maybe. If we're nice and, pithy with our comments, maybe. Question 7, what motivates you to support the shelter's fundraising efforts? I mean, this one I didn't find anything surprising in this. It feels like we all understand the critical work that's being done for the community, and I think, yeah, I didn't see anything here that made me worried. Feels like we know it's necessary and we can't sustain ourselves without building this capacity. So, anybody have anything else to add to this one? All right, question 8. Please share any additional thoughts or suggestions to improve board engagement in fundraising. And looks like 4 of us answered that one. I'll say my answer was the one around, I feel like we need to have more access to the donor database. I have access to that, and I don't think anyone else on our board does. And I don't fully understand how to utilize it as a tool, but I do think it's something that if we were able to spend time understanding and developing an understanding of who is donating, we might be able to get insight from that and think about who, like, where to make those asks. The few things I've picked up on that kind of surprised me coming into it, not knowing a lot about what a donor database will do. There's a donor from New York who was donating $1,000 a month for a few months last year. And I'm making an assumption that there must be some personal connection to someone who is maybe staying at the shelter, you know. Maybe that's if I'm just thinking through in my mind, like if I had a family member who was in a situation where they're seeking services at the shelter, that might be a way that I would try to support them without sending them a check directly, you know, perhaps, I don't know. That's where I'm kind of puzzled, like, who are these people? There's a woman who has been donating like $250 every month for a long, long time. And I'd love to understand, like, why, you know? Is it just she forgot to turn it off? Like, or does she have a genuine commitment to the shelter? And what are we doing to acknowledge that? Understand, you know, what drives that, and how do we learn from that so that we could get others to make similar commitments? $250 a month is pretty substantial, you know, and so if you're saying 150 is the average, I'm assuming that's 150 a year. Right? So 250 can add up. And if you think, can we get the number of monthly sustaining donors? Right now it's around 50. It's like, I think 48 or something like that. It's like, can we get that number to grow to 100 or 150 or 200? Because that becomes a more reliable income stream, even if it's not, you know, 250 a month, but it's $25 a month, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where I'm at when I've spent some time clicking around in that system, and I think it'd be helpful for you guys to have the same access and say, oh, what is this? And there are things I look at, I don't know what that is. It's a little bit baffling because we treat like grants, we kind of put them also in that same database, and that confuses me. So, like, to me, the donations I'm most interested in are those individuals, like, you know, I'm a donor, so I can see myself in there. I can look at my history, and like that I can relate to, and I can relate to like wanting to make a connection to someone who's been a longtime donor and feel like, as a board member, I, you know, would want to really show my appreciation to their commitment. So that's where I was kind of at with my answer, was just help us better engage donors by having access. Does anyone else have anything to share from their comments or?
Can I speak to the grants being entered into every action?
Sure, just keep it short. We got 11 minutes left, so.
Yep. So we talked about this a little bit today during our strategic development meeting. I said this is probably unnecessary for you guys to know, but over the last, since I've been with LCS, to me it makes sense to have a system where you can ensure that all of the funds that are being received are getting deposited, that nobody's pocketing them. So as part of an internal controls process. So we receive paper checks from Douglas County for our contract services. And so, you know, I was showing them today. I've got a report in there that's called undeposited checks. The way internal controls works is that one person checks the mail, a different person opens the mail and enters the checks into every action, and then someone else deposits them. And right now I'm that someone else that deposits them, but I use that undeposited checks report as the tape for the remote deposit. But it's also good for audit tracking purposes. So the grants are in there so that we can tie it back to what's going on in the account. So there's a double check there, and that's primarily why I like that we're accounting for grants in there, but we certainly can parse that out and have it just focused on donors.
Thanks for explaining that. I figured there was probably some, dual purpose it serves. But in terms of like, us developing better understanding of our donors, that's where I found the data. It has other stuff in there that, like I said, kind of throws me off, like, but I appreciate understanding that it provides, sort of financial controls for us.
I do know that Bonterra has taken over Every Actions, and they've been putting out a lot of webinars. I'd be interested. They do host private trainings, I think for about $1,500, so that we can really understand the system, because there's a lot of potential that we can be utilizing the system for. And I don't know if you've been on the homepage, but it talks about how you can optimize your fundraising, reach out to these donors they haven't donated in a while, what the potential growth could be. So it is interesting.
Yeah. All right, last question was, given the amount of funding that must be raised, do you believe it would be beneficial for LCS to hire a professional fundraiser? Please explain the reason. So this was directly a result of our discussion last month. That idea was kicked around a little bit. I think I think it might have started with we need to, have an employee whose job this is, but there was also, I think, talk about whether it's a consultant. So it's kind of like we need to bring expertise to this. We need to acknowledge that this is something we're building capacity for, and it isn't none of us, at least on the board, already have this. John might have been the only one that seemed to speak with some authority around experience with significant fundraising with a gala event that he's been part of for a while, and another one that he's more recently involved in. But professionally, this isn't any of our gigs. So it seemed like this one got some traction, and I appreciate everyone giving their responses to this. Overall, it did seem like there was agreement, like we need to probably invest in some kind of expertise. So that validated our discussion. Don't have a whole lot more time tonight, but I was trying to anticipate, like, what can we do that's a little bit more tangible as a next step. So on the agenda, I took liberty to just throw out the idea of an action item to form a committee. I wasn't sure if we wanted to actually commit to having a committee, because we already have a few, or if we wanted to maybe just try this idea of an initial committee that would be more of a task with really digging a little deeper, bringing back a more formal proposal to the whole board. So it could be just the executive committee, but I also think I didn't want to, I guess I was open to the possibility that there might be others that want to get more engaged, and this would be a chance to do that. I also realized, like, we've tossed the idea of committees out before and it's kind of been crickets. So I'm putting myself out there. I'm willing to be on this committee. I feel like it's probably going to take a little more time than we've been doing on our exec committee. So anyway, I put it out there for your consideration if someone is interested in making such a motion, but we probably need to figure out, like, who exactly would want to do this work.
I was just noting, there's just one individual, do we have more people, or is someone signed up? They're all there. Sorry,
No, John's here, Rebecca's still here, Chacone's here, so we're everybody but Shannon, and she has a family issue tonight, so.
I am willing to help in this process, however we can. So I'm
Okay.
on board with helping.
I am as well, Charlie.
Thank you both. I feel like maybe we could throw that together then, if someone would want to make a motion. I've taken the liberty to draft one. If you want to insert the names, we could get this thing kicked off.
I moved to establish, so you moved to establish, right? The initial fundraising committee composed of Charlie, Brian, Chicani Baker, and John Crable, tasked with developing a formal proposal to increase private funding through donations and fundraising events. The committee will present its recommendations to the board for consideration at a future meeting.
Thanks, Chicani. I'm gonna get your name pronounced correctly.
It's
Sorry-
Chicani, yeah.
Sorry, I've been saying Ciccone.
It's fine.
Ciccone. Is there a second to the motion?
One second.
All right, thanks, Christina. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, then all in favor of the motion to establish an initial fundraising committee composed of Charlie, Ciccone, and John, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. Thank you guys so much. I know this is not easy work and but it has to be done, and I think it's great that we've got some volunteers to be on the committee to put something together that we can all take a look at in the future. I will reach out to the two of you to kind of get us started with an initial meeting. So look forward to talking to you guys more about it. And nothing else is on the agenda unless someone has something they wanted to throw out there. All right, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Thank you, Chuck.
Second.
And it's been seconded by Christina. Is there any discussion on the motion to adjourn? As there's none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Thanks, everyone.
Thank
See
you.
you next month.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.